At the Alternative Farming Systems Information Center, systems is the key word. Our mission is to find as much information as we can on non-conventional ways of farming, then to provide this information to all who can benefit from it. One good way to convey new ideas to both farmers and educators is to give creative thinkers an opportunity to talk with us on videotape, and then to make these interviews widely available. Wes Jackson is one of these creative thinkers, a farmer philosopher who strives to practice what he preaches. As co-founder with his wife, Dana Lee, of the Land Institute in Salina, Kansas, he devotes his time and resources to researching and teaching an ecologically sound lifestyle and system of farming. Today is February 27th, 1990. My name is Jayne MacLean, coordinator of the Alternative Farming Systems Information Center at the National Agricultural Library. Jane Gates, assistant coordinator of the center, will conduct the interview with Dr. Jackson.
Good morning. It's a pleasure to have you join me in welcoming Dr. Jackson to Washington, D.C.
My pleasure.
And you've come up from Williamsburg, where you went to a conference.
That's right.
And you're on your way back to South Dakota, or to South Dakota?
On my way to South Dakota and then back to Kansas.
And you do a lot of traveling.
Well, mostly in the wintertime or outside this planting season.
Mm-hmm. In the service of your government?
In the service of my government.
Mm-hmm. Did you have parents or relatives that were working for the government that inspired you back in your boyhood days?
No. No, I've had no close relatives that have worked for the government.
Tell us a little bit about your boyhood.
Well, I was born and raised on a farm in the Kansas River Valley near Topeka, a little west of Topeka, west of where the Goodyear Tire and Rubber Company is now. Mm-hmm. It was a truck farm, but also had livestock and grain. We had corn, wheat, cattle, hogs, horses, strawberries, watermelons, sweet potatoes, cantaloupes.
That's impressive.
It was an extremely diverse corn. Even some sugar cane one time, and phlox and peonies and so on.
My father told me years ago that it was not polite to ask how large somebody's farm was, but I have to ask you anyway. Was this a large farm?
No, the acreage I grew up on was 40 acres, and then we had another 20 acres or so that was my father's family land down on closer to the river, and then we rented a little land besides. So I would say a total about 70 acres.
That's fairly small as farms go.
It's fairly small as farms go, but it's interesting that that acreage brought 6 children through a depression, and they never went on relief.
And you ate well.
And we ate well. Mm-hmm. There was not much money, but there was plenty of food.
That's what's important.
That's what's important.
And the families stayed together. Did you have extended family?
Well, my grandfather, who was born in 1855 and in Virginia, came to Kansas in 1877 and had bought this, maybe just a little over, let's see, it would be 80 and 90, about 170 acres there in the Kansas River Valley, and then he had 4 children.
This is your paternal grandfather?
This would be, no, that would be my maternal, my mother's father. His name was Charles Wesley Stover, who incidentally was the uncle of General Eisenhower, President Eisenhower. His sister was Ida. But before that, my great-grandfather, Robert Hall Pearson, came into Kansas in 1854, the day of the Kansas-Nebraska Act, and settled, and fought in the Battle of Blackjack, which was the first battle between Free State and pro-slavery forces, rode with John Brown. So our family's been in Kansas for a long time, and there are a lot of relatives still around, and a lot of them in agriculture, most of them now in other things.
Was there a particular member of the family that made a lasting impression on you?
Oh, I don't think so. Back in those days, there was still such a thing as community.
Yes.
And so the community as a metaphor and the community as a mystery was, in looking back now, I see the power of community as both a metaphor and a mystery, and that there were things that were at work in the community, so that there was no, I would say, any outstanding person. Of course, my mother was outstanding, and my father was outstanding, and my brothers and sisters, I'm the last of 6, they were all outstanding in my memory, but it was because of a rather close family and a close community.
Mm-hmm. And did you go to the proverbial Little Red Schoolhouse?
It was a 2-room country school that there were 4 grades in each. We had no kindergarten.
So you must have had 2 teachers.
We had 2 teachers, and grades 1 through 4 in the little room and 5 through 8 in the big room. And it was divided right down the middle. There were 6 kids in my class. I was the only boy through most of my grade school years. Then went to Seaman Rural High School, and all the little country schools fed that high school.
And Seaman was the name of the town?
No, Seaman was the name of the first principal of that high school, but it was Seaman Rural High School in the north part of Topeka, which is now a huge high school. But there were, I think, 42 in my graduating class from high school.
And from there you went on to?
Then I went to Kansas Wesleyan University in Salina, which is a Methodist college that had about, I don't know, 400 or 500 students, maybe less than that at the time. I went mostly to play sports.
What did you play?
Well, I played football and track the first year, but then played football for 4 years, and I would say that my lure was more sports than it was the academic.
You're not alone.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it took me a long time to grow up.
So where'd you go next?
And then my wife and I married in the middle part of my senior year, the middle part of her junior year.
Had you met her at college?
Well, when I was a freshman in college, and she was a senior in high school at Abilene, I met her. And then this was 35 years ago yesterday, the 26th of February, 1955.
To both of you.
Yeah. Then she came to Kansas Wesleyan, and so I couldn't get a coaching job nearby. And so I started a master's degree in botany at the University of Kansas, and she went to the University of Kansas and finished her last year. And then I went to, I took 2 years on the master's in botany, and then, and she taught the second year in Ottawa, and then we both moved to Olathe, Kansas, and from 60 to 62, I taught biology, coached football and track at Olathe High School. And our first child was born there, Laura, in 61. Then from 62 to 64, taught at Kansas Wesleyan in the biology department.
Back to your alma mater.
Back to the alma mater, and our son was born there in 63, Scott. And then from 64 to 67, I worked on the PhD at North Carolina State in Raleigh in the genetics department, took a PhD in genetics. And then from 67 to 71, back to Kansas Wesleyan, 4.5 years there, January 67. And then in that time, I put out the book Man and the Environment.
Yes.
And then the California State University in Sacramento, it's called Sacramento State at that time. But its name changed while I was there. They hired me to organize the environmental studies program, and so I directed that for a while, and then took a leave of absence in 74. Went back to the land we had in Kansas, and tried to do sort of a homesteading type thing with sort of subsistence level living, and we wanted to get our children out of suburban life. We didn't want to see them raised in shopping malls and Little League.
You had been living where in California?
Well, Sacramento. And so then I was either had to resign. I had tenure and was full professor at California State at Sacramento, and either had to resign or go back. And so we resigned and started the Land Institute.
Did you have difficulty making that decision?
Oh,
did it take some agonizing?
Yeah, it was agonizing. In fact, the financial insecurity of it was almost got to me, and in fact, I said to the family once, well, we better go back. And our daughter, Laura, who was born in '61, so this was in '74, she was 13, she sort of burst into tears, and she said, but I thought you always said that we're not called to success, but to be obedient to our visions.
Ooh.
And so...
Were those your words that she was turning back to you?
She was throwing back at me. So we stayed. And so the Land Institute was started in '76, and we've gone from a very small budget of, I don't know, 8 or 9 or 10,000, I don't know what it was, until we're pretty close to $500,000 now.